First is sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve.
Every pitch, every out matters so much, and the amount of intensity that these games are going to be played, even though there's no fans, like there's a lot of weight behind every pitch because 162. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not intense and every game counts, but it's even more amplified now with these 60 games.
Mets first baseman Pete Alonso on 60 games and making them all count. Now back here, first things first with Chris Broussard. Nick, which team do you think is most set up to take advantage of what will now be a 60-game season in baseball?
I almost hate to say it, but I think it's the Astros. I know they're the least popular team in the league right now, nationally possibly, but they're not going to have to deal with hostile crowds. They're not. I think because of that, they're going to deal with less hostile opposing teams. And if it's going to come down to starting pitching, Wilds, despite losing Garrett Cole, they still have Verlander and Greinke, and Lance McCullers Jr. is back after missing all of last season. So I think this sets up very favorably for Houston Wilds.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go with the Yankees. Aaron Judge hit 2 home runs on Sunday. Yesterday, he had another home run when there was 3 outs. You see something new every day when you watch a baseball game. Joe Girardi's like, hey, I know there's 3 outs, but let me get my guy face Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge hits a bomb out to right field, and the Phillies like, all right, I know he hit a home run, but is that it, or can we go back in the dugout? So Aaron Judge and the Yankees are going to be very successful. They can still hit home runs while there is 3 outs, Broussard.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth between the Dodgers and the Yankees. Obviously, I think the Dodgers are the deepest team, the most versatile team as far as their position players in the league. But I'm worried a little bit about the pitching staff. Obviously, Kershaw and Kenley Jansen are getting a little bit older, and they got to replace Ryu and Maeda. That's what I'm worried about. So I'm going with the Yankees as well. Wilds. Look, Aaron Judge has missed 50 or more games the last 2 years. He's only got to stay healthy for 60. He should be able to do that. And that's not to mention Giancarlo Stanton. They added Garrett Cole, obviously, to the pitching staff. And when I look at Stanton, Judge, DJ LeMahieu, and Gleyber Torres in that lineup, I like the Yankees.
You're wasting your time basketball, Broussard. You're a baseball guy at heart. Time for stories to start your morning. Starting with the Brooklyn bench boss. A recent report says Nets GM Sean Marks is interested in keeping Jacques Vaughn along as head coach. Nick, what would this mean for KD and Kyrie?
Well, it would mean they don't totally and fully already run the franchise. And I think that's what Sean Marks is trying to prevent to a degree. KD and Kyrie got Kenny Atkinson out. They got DeAndre Jordan in the starting lineup, and they want to pick the next head coach. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, but if Jacques Vaughn ends up becoming the head coach here, it's going to be because Sean Marks and Jacques Vaughn have a relationship dating back to San Antonio, and he thinks he will have a say in the franchise the way a GM is supposed to, Wilds.
Yeah, I'm rooting for Jacques Vaughn to make some noise down in Orlando. He's been dealt a pretty brutal hand here. Broussard, part of me thinks that the Nets are set up for a David Blatt type situation where next year, whoever that coach is going to be, if the Nets get off to a rough start, people start looking around like, how about we get rid of the coach?
Remember a few years ago, Jacques Vaughn was like the cat's meow. I like using that phrase, Nick. I've done it again. But he, then he went to Orlando and he struggled. So he was a big name at one point as far as the next big coach. So I could see Marks going with it. But I disagree, Nick, that, Kyrie, I believe, likes Jacques Vaughn. And I actually think that Durant and Kyrie would kind of have their way with Jacques. I think they're better off. Now, look, Popovich would be the dream. I don't think that happens. But that would be what they need to do. If they can't get a Popovich, which I don't think they can, I would go with Mark Jackson. I think Mark Jackson would come in and have enough authority and respect from KD and Kyrie Irving to coach them. I think being in New York, he's from New York, I think the fans would like him. I go with Jackson.
All right, moving on to a little rocket boost with Russell Westbrook reportedly joining the team down in Orlando yesterday. Broussard, back to you. What's the ceiling for the Rockets with Westbrook back?
Look, I always would give them a puncher's chance because they got 2 all-time greats in their prime. and they play the small ball. But let's face it, they're going out in the second round if they even get that far. The Clippers or the Lakers are who they're going to face in that second round, and they can't beat them. They cannot beat the Clippers or the Lakers if everybody's healthy. Stop it, Nick. Don't even think that.
That's amazing, because here's the thing. They've played the Clippers and the Lakers 6 times this year, and they're 3-3. So for a team that can't beat them, they did something half the times they played those teams. They played the Clippers 4 times this year. 2-2 against the Clippers, and one of those losses happened in the final 30 seconds. That Kawhi locked James Harden down in those 4 games to 32, 6, and 8 on 40% from 3. Like, this just ongoing, utter disrespect for Houston. By the way, your worst nightmare, Broussard, and it could happen. The Rockets and Clippers could be playing in the first round. That could be a 3-6 matchup if the Rockets stay where they are, and we all know the Clippers are going to be load managing this 8-game restart. So that's absolutely in play. They fall from 2 to 3, and this is the first round, Wilds.
I buy that. I didn't think about that earlier, Nick, but the Clippers are going to just worry about the playoffs and just drop down to 3. Then you got Russ. I'd be very worried about Russ Broussard. Russ averaging 31 points and shooting 53% post Capella. I think with no fans, the people are like Russ who like self-motivate are just going to bring 100%, not affected by the crowd. I think the Rockets are going to be very, very dangerous.
And real quick, I don't want to make Clipper fans nervous, but with the NBA schedule potentially having a very short offseason, I'm hearing they might load manage Kawhi in the playoffs to have him ready for next season. I can't confirm that. It's just something I'm hearing. So careful of that, too.
He played every
Clipper
playoff
fans.
game last year. Played every one. That's unfair.
You're living under Broussard's skin right now. On to the West's best. Who, Nick? Taking something too far? For LeBron James' entire career, he's heard critics say, sure, he can do it in the East, but what about the West? Well, the King has spoken, leading the Lakers to the best record in the West this season. LeBron responding to a tweet yesterday that the East is easy and he won't do that in the West by saying this. Bro, I swear I heard that for 15 years. Nick, why is LeBron bringing this up?
Because it's true. And LeBron hears everything. Aside from during the playoffs when he's in zero dark 30 mode, he hears everything. And it was a ludicrous indictment of an unprecedented run of dominance in a conference. And by the way, it's also ahistorical to act like we haven't almost always had one conference be slightly weaker or much weaker than the other, and someone take advantage of it. In the 80s, the East was far better than the West. And guess what? The Lakers went to the finals 8 damn times that decade. In the 90s, the East was far weaker than the West. And guess what? The Bulls went to the finals 6 damn times. In the 2000s, the East has been weaker, and so it's not been a team that's gone to the finals, but LeBron has gone to the finals. But Broussard, him in his first full healthy year with the Lakers, getting the 1 seed in the West and making the finals will, I think, go a long way in disabusing folks of the notion that this was the main reason he dominated the way he did.
Yeah, I think this is so blown out of proportion because, first of all, for the bulk of LeBron's career, nobody was downplaying the East that much. Earlier in his career, you had Miami with Shaq and Wade. You had Detroit that was a great team. Yep. Then you had the big three in Boston. Then you had Dwight Howard in Orlando. Chicago was a tough team while the big three was still there with the Celtics. So up through his early years in Miami, the East was a monster. It was only really, later when he was in Cleveland his second year that people started talking about the East not being nearly as good. And it was easy for him to get to the finals. The second thing is that the talk was all getting to the finals. That's why he's going to the finals, because it's the East. It was never in relation to the MVP. Nobody said, oh, we're not giving LeBron the MVP because he did it in the East. He won all 4 of his MVPs in the East. And Derrick Rose won an MVP in the East. So that was never held against LeBron. The reason he never won an MVP his second go-round in Cleveland, because those Cavs teams never had great regular seasons. They had 1 year where they won 57 games. The other years they won 50, 51, 53 because they were coasting. and building during the regular season and basically saving it for the playoffs. So this East-West notion is so overblown with the LeBron thing.
I don't know. So we went back first team All-NBA and second team All-NBA. And I said, I thought it was less about the teams and more about the players, where the good players were. And in the last 5 years, guys not named LeBron, there were 7 guys from the East and 38 from the West. And then I said, hey, Dusty, when's the last time the East had more players on the first and second team All-NBA team than the West? And Dusty said that was during the Clinton administration. Grant Hill, Jordan Penny, Pip, Glenn Rice, and Ewing were on the East. Malone, Hakeem, Gary Payton, and Mitch Richmond on the West. So it's been since I was in high school, Nick, that the East was strong. It's a valid criticism, but I don't know why LeBron doesn't lean into it. Be like, hey, not my fault. People were scared to come to the East because I was dominated. No, it worked for Tom Brady. I don't think he should run from this criticism.
Well, and by the way, you saw in a lot of free agency decisions, guys up until recently weren't signing in the Eastern Conference.